Excellency, and your dear wife, the chairman of this occasion, Dr. Engr.Prof. Please permit me to stand on that established protocols because of time. But permit me to appreciate my dear wife, who has been very supportive. So we'll have a song towards dinner tonight. Also accompanying her is our daughter-in-law. You are welcome, all of you. Distinguished guests, it is a profound honor to stand before you today, addressing this gathering in celebration of the exemplary life and vision of architect OBONG Victor Attah. We pay tribute to a man of unquestionable integrity, a symbol of peace and unity, a patriot, a consummate administrator, an iconic personality, and distinguished Nigerian. At the age of 85, architect OBONG Victor Attah remains a towering figure among his contemporaries and a true role model to all, particularly as the founding father of the modern Akwa state. I had the privilege of serving under this forward-thinking visionary leadership when I was appointed special advisor to His Excellency in the then newly established Bureau of Science and Technology. It bothered me how he knew me. And let me be very precise here, I never met him. One day, a man now late, one Prince Imeldo came to my office when I was the acting dean. The way he bulldozed into my office, he did not greet me. The first thing he asked me, "My friend, where are you from?" Thank God I was very calm. I mentioned the name of my place. I said, "I'm from Bagitam 3. He said, "Bagitam 3? I said, "Yes." He said, "Somebody helped me in that village 20 years ago. The village head." I laughed. I said, "If 20 years ago, that should be my father." He said, "No, no, what do you mean?" I said, "That's my father. That time my father was still alive." I described a compound. That is the compound. "Oh, you are the son." I came to spoil things, but now I will not do it again. I want to mention your name when we had a meeting last night. I've never heard of your name. You have never been in politics. And now, just to come in like that, because of your father, come and see OBONG Attah by 7 a.m. after Mass. That was the genesis of my appointment. Your Excellency, I'm grateful. In a remarkably short span, the Bureau of Science and Technology was elevated to a full-fledged ministry, and I was honored to become the pioneer commissioner under his able leadership. During that time, His Excellency shared with me in vivid details his vision for building and equipping a science park. I proudly recall our numerous journeys to foreign countries to gather first-hand knowledge and experiences concerning the operations and potentials of a science park. Well, thank God the chairman of today's occasion is here. Most of the time we were traveling together to so many countries. I can permit myself some respite if I say that I can modestly consider myself Among the many persons that can enunciate the vision of His Excellency, OBONG Victor Attah, on science and technology, and therefore qualified to give this address. I must express my deep appreciation to the Youth Club for their foresight in organizing this colloquium to mark the 85th birthday of His Excellency OBONG Victor Attah, and for their outstanding accomplishments, including the remarkable achievements of one of his own, Mr. John Obot, who broke a Guinness World Record for the longest hour of reading aloud, thereby placing Akwa Ibom State and Nigeria on the global literacy map. Our dear state, Akwa Ibom, is blessed with abundant natural resources and vital environments, including renewable resources such as water, forestry, and fisheries, alongside non-renewable resources such as minerals. I believe we know that in this country, we have more than 44 minerals in about 500 locations in Nigeria. And Akwa Ibom also is well blessed. I wouldn't have time to name the minerals. I can do that under consultation. Because I remember after post-COVID, which was, I think, something on economic empowerment for the state, chaired by Professor Okpanekbo, I was invited all the way from Jos to name some of the minerals and how we can go about it. I don't know what has happened to that till now. I spoke with my minister, and Akwa Ibom was invited. I don't want to say much about that, because that privilege was captured by Cross River State, and they have started building something there in that state, and Akwa Ibom was left behind. We were to have that privilege because the committee was invited to Abuja, and even till now, I don't think there was any letter of appreciation to the minister. That is a story for another day. However, despite being a substantial contributor to our nation's prosperity, Akwa Ibom relies heavily on federal allocations for survival. Over 70% of our workforce is sustained by these allocations, while other industrial sector remains small and government-owned, emblematic of underdevelopment. Let me now deal with OBONG Attah's vision. In the upshot of his engagement with the people leading up to his election as the second civilian governor of Akwa Ibom State in 1999, His Excellency OBONG Victor Attah articulated a visionary plan in his handbook, Come, Let's Build Together, which was published and circulated widely. There, he clearly laid out the philosophical thrusts and development initiative of his incoming government. That means he had prepared before coming to government. He really prepared. I don't know whether we are preparing nowadays. As the title suggests, this was an invitation to the people, every citizen, to take ownership of the government and be involved in its socio-economic and political engineering. As a proficient architect, His Excellency OBONG Victor Attah evolved the blueprint for the state economic development and stability. Himself being a proactive policymaker, understood before others that Akwa Ibom State's problem was largely due to failure not to formulate, but failure to implement the right growth promotion policies that will signal the necessary push towards diversification of the economy. And indeed, that is a problem in the country. we have fantastic policies. The problem is the implementation of policies. Its diagnosis of the problem revealed that a lack of investment in science and technology has undermined the state's economic rapid transformation. This is so both at the structural and sectoral levels. This neglect has had far-reaching consequences. Without the economic and scientific infrastructure necessary for innovation, the state has continued to rely on the meager allocation from the federal government, which is both unsustainable and largely responsible for its debilitating aid and allocation dependency. To sail through this challenge, Akwa Ibom must create an enabling environment through pro-innovation, pro-science, and pro-technology policies dedicated to overcoming barriers related to regulation, corruption, and investment, while enabling private sector innovation, adaptation, and adoption. At the same time, the state must also invest in creating an ecosystem that facilitates investments in science and technology in a way that will not just accelerate discovery, but allow innovations to expeditiously enter the marketplace. Akwa Ibom State was one of the first states in the country to establish science and technology organ of government. I repeat, Akwa Ibom State was one of the first states in the country to establish science and technology organ of government. And that wouldn't have been possible without the celebrant today, Attah. It was also the first state to formulate policies on science and technology and information and technology, which were established in January 2004. I recall some members of this committee. I remember Professor Celestin Twain from all the way from US. I also recall the chairman of today's occasion, Dr. Emmanuel Ekuwem, who was involved in the formulation of the policies, both for science and tech and ICT. I recall also one Chris Uwaje from Lagos, who was the national of the computer listing, and so many others. These were experts in their own field and formulated the policy, and it was only the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology in Nigeria that had such policy. And the next was Akwa Ibom. The next state that tried to borrow from us was Lagos State. But with all those policies today, if they were implemented, Akwa Ibom by today would be more than Dubai, would be more than any other country. I pray we should have a rethink that we cannot go far without science and technology. Let me now explain the need for a science and technology policy in the state. Among the reasons which can be advanced for a science and technology policy for the state are: 1, the need for effective promotion and coordination of science and technology activities. 2, the development of a research development culture with a strong emphasis on industrial and related applications. Please, without taking any offense, I believe after studying what is going on in this Akwa Ibom state, it appears that we are technophobic. I'm sorry to say this, but that is a fact. I will explain to you. In the early 1990s, under the rule of Babangida as the president of this country, he gave us a University of Technology. We revolted. We need a conventional university. And we went back to University of Cross River State after now Akwa Ibom. 20 years after, under the leadership of architect Victor Attah, he said there was need for a University of Technology. and establish one. Professor Asuquo that you see here, there was the pioneer VC of that university. We went to NUC for accreditation, and they were very surprised. The ideas from the state, where did you get such ideas? And they granted us accreditation. Right now in Ondo State, the person who was the executive secretary of NUC pick up what we use to establish. The one in Ondo State is standing. But surprisingly, the one of AsuquoDirector said, we don't need University of Technology. We need a conventional university. We went back 20 years back. That's why I'm saying it appears that we are technophobic. We hate anything about technology. I pray the Almighty will help us to change the mindset, to change our people. Because all over the world today, if you don't apply technology in doing things, you are going backward. I also listen to the TV, news in TV. When one of the governors said, what is this research and development you are talking about? All I need is agriculture. That was the saddest moment in my life. When I heard that on the TV, that we don't need research and development, we need agriculture. How can you grow in agriculture without research and development? How can you do in education without research and development? In all fields, if you don't apply research and development, you'll be going backward. I pray that this state will become technophilic. Thank God. It looks like the federal government have been saying, we force you to be technophilic. 20 years after, they have given us again a University of Technology in Ikodabasi. I pray that I'm praying that people will not protest again. Another need is the imperative to ensuring that the state captures and derives maximum benefit from emerging scientific and technological scenario involving particularly those rapid-moving advances with profound economic implications. Such frontier gains include space science and technology, information and communication technology, and biotechnology. The process of promotion and utilization of science and technology through the policy should be addressed within the context of the prevailing world order, and in which socio-economic progress is now universally acknowledged to be knowledge-driven. There are several components identified in this science. Science and technology shall form the basis of state development and should influence the people's thinking and working processes. The philosophy for science and technology shall take due cognizance of the economic and cultural milieu in the country. Also, the socio-political system with the country shall reflect the prime position of science and technology with regard to national economic development. Provision shall be made for adequate development of scientific and technological manpower so as to ensure the development of the state capability in science and technology, and hence the efficiency utilization of states' abundant natural resources. And I believe we know, even though I don't want to mention the minerals, the commonest minerals we have everywhere, even outside here, is sand. Sand. And if you do your research, you know the millions of naira in Lagos State, how they derive from sand, just sand. But here we We don't take it as anything. I mean, sand. Done. God bless you. When I went to Federal Polytechnic in 1983, and I was made the head of department, I saw some heaps of sand imported from Hungary. And this was a place near the river Niger with abundance of sand. And I was inquisitive to know the amount of money used to import this. I discovered then millions of naira importing sand into the country. And I wrote to the rector that we can do any other thing, but not sand. We could get sand from the river Niger. As much, all what we need to do is to sieve them, making foundries and other things. So, we have advantage of having sand in the country. We have advantage of having clay in this state. Clay. Ndom. I believe we know why they established ceramics is because of abundance of clay in the state. Today that is abandoned. We don't know. We know that clay is not only used for ceramics. Clay is used for pharmaceuticals. We know in those days, our grandparents, when you have any body problem, they will carry them. It's medicinal. And all over the world, they are using ndom as medicine. So there are a lot of resources which we can use science and technology to help our people. Now let me go into, why do we invest in science and technology? Why do we have investment here? I must say that today's world, in many respects, is governed by science and technology. In banking, we know all that already. In agriculture, in education, in production, in manufacturing, and trading, all these need investment in science and technology. The wealth, influence, and power in the political scene of any nation depend on its capacity and capability to utilize science and technology for social and economic development. No wonder then countries invest billions in science and technology. Billions of naira. If we have time about science and technology in China, the amount of billions of dollars for their GDP, that comes from science and technology. In China, in India, I don't need to tell you about India. India has governed the whole world now because of science and technology. Look at leaders in the whole world today, whether in US, whether in Canada, and so on. Trace the route. Most of them are Indians. Why? Science and technology. The new science and technology is pushing human development to a new stage. For example, skills acquisition and efficient manpower utilization. Also, economic growth. Developing countries must invest in science and technology to achieve attainable growth. Between 2001 and now, there has been tremendous economic growth in Akwa Ibom State and Nigeria in general. I would like those that were sent out for their training for human capacity, please stand. There are just few here. Your Excellency, these are the men you sent out under training for masters and PhD. And some of them, if not all, are heads of departments in the university. There's a commissioner among you. He hasn't come. He traveled out. So that wouldn't have been possible That wouldn't have been possible without this skill training, capacity training. So, Your Excellency, the seed you sowed many years ago, they have become forests. Why do we invest in science and technology? In industrial development. Science and technology form the basis for industrial development of any nation. There is a challenge in this area of the economy in the state. The next thing is poverty reduction. Developing countries will likely remain mired in poverty unless we invest in science and technology. Now, let me say this. Akwa Ibom will continue to have unemployment if we don't invest in science and technology. I believe that you know the percentage of unemployment in Akwa Ibom State, because we don't want to invest in science and technology. We have some laudable programs, Dakada, Arise. I don't know the difference between them. But I think we should not only have this, we should implement them for our people to arise to higher heights. We need to implement them for us to have industrial development in the state. What about food security? Most institutions of higher learning now offer courses on food technology, storage, and preservation. That also has to do with science and technology. Sustainable development. It may interest you to know that Africa is the greatest net importer of food. Science and technology play a critical role in enhancing food security and sustainable development. Enlarged business with reduction in transaction costs. We are talking about internet. We are all familiar with that. Local production of finishing is another area we have to invest in. What about in goods? This will enhance local production of finished goods to compete and displace expensive imports. What about wealth creation? Growth in small and medium-scale businesses and industries. Agriculture, like palm kernel, pineapple, cassava, manufacturing, soap making, bottling water, oil mining, soft drinks, etc. There are also problems in this investment. One of it is poor funding. Let me say that science and technology is capital intensive. I've said in part I presented a paper to the federal government that if they don't invest much in science and technology, we cannot go far in the country. In developing countries, they mark out about 3 to 4% of their GDP for research and development. But unfortunately in this country, until recently, we were operating on 0.1% of our GDP on research and development. But I think the past administration increased a little to 0.5%. We cannot go far. And that because of poor funding. Education and training. Many countries in Africa have realized that it is the availability of adequate human potential which is the basis for many progress in science and technology. Your Excellency, I want to thank you so much because you had known this about 20 years ago, that education and training is what we need. Please, I'm appealing to the state. If there's any other thing that we shouldn't do, we shouldn't toy with our education and training of people. I recall that when we sent out about, I can't remember whether 198 or so to Canada for ICT training, there were criticisms in the state. These people will never come back. Why do you send them out? Whether they come back or not, they will increase the economic environment of this state. Assuming now one person in Canada sends $100 to the family, do you know the influence that will have in the environment? Not to talk about the state. So if about 5 of them will send out by $500, so whether they come back or not, Your Excellency, this has proved to be of benefit to this state. We should do more. We should send out more people for training, and it will be for the interest of the state. We should start again to pay for our school set people. I don't know what they call it. Is it WAEC and NECO? We pay for them. If not, with all, please, if you know our Yoruba brothers, they are everywhere in the world because of the foundation set in education. May the Lord help us. Is my time up? Okay, I know you are warning me. So, if we want to grow as a state, education should be our priority. We can remember that there was some young boys in University of Calabar. I can't remember the year, either 2003 or 4, the Engr brothers. The way His Excellency was able to, they were doing something automatic voltage regulator. And he had to give them 1.5 million as students for the research. And they came out with fantastic product. And at the national level, they came first because of this encouragement. We should be doing more of that to encourage our people. I've discussed on human resource development. I've also discussed on investment, research, and development, the technology policy. Then, even though the chairman said I should round up, but I cannot talk about science and technology without the Science Park project, a part to a secure future. Sorry? Thank you, sir. I've heard a lot of things that the Science Park is a waste, it's an abandoned project. You know, there's nothing as bad as lack of knowledge. No wonder the Bible says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. The Science Park was thoroughly initiated and well planned for the development of this country, of this state. And I believe you know that in this state, we were the first to be registered in the Association of Science Parks, ISP, in the whole world, apart from South Africa. AsuquoDirector state was the only state to have been a member of International Association of Science Parks. It's because of the initiative that we had. So what is a science park? It's an essential component of the global knowledge economy, providing a conducive environment for innovation, technology development, and commercialization, where government, universities, and private companies collaborate. It is a physical space where knowledge-intensive organizations and institutes co-locate, leveraging innovation both formally and informally. Historically, when our governor, Attah, assumed office, AsuquoDirector state was primarily a civil service state. He recognized the need for a change, particularly with technology shaping the future, and opted to build the Science Park as the cornerstone of state's technological development. AsuquoDirector state became one of only 2 places in Africa, besides South Africa, to register with the International Association of Science Parks, highlighting the project's potential to drive the state's economy to new heights. The Science Park, with planned tax holidays, was intended to attract businesses and become a hub for technological development that will span all 31 local government areas of the state. As far back as 2001, there was a plan to interconnect all the 31 local governments by a company called Dimension Data, first of its kind. When you Google it, you see their position in the world. They went through all the 32 local governments. The essence was, that should have been part of the Science Park. You know, when people see the building along Calabar Road, and so on. They say, oh, this science park was more than that. In the secretariat, it was a position for 600 stand-alone computers that will connect the whole state with information and the whole world. That was still part of the science park. As I'm talking to you, there are equipment worth more than 2-point-something billion rusting away in that premises. I don't know, the government in their wisdom abandoned that project. I would say that as a state, many countries now know that without science park, they cannot industrialize their nation. Building a hub or building a house, say industrialization is not it. We have done a lot of studies to know that countries that have industries, they start with the science park. They incubate or spin in some fast brains from universities into the park, and they will liaise with nationals. Before you know it, they are spin out to start their cottage industries. And within some years, the state will be full of industries. That's why we did the science park, and I believe that there's a chance. I will appeal that for the future, government should pay attention to this science park and then complete it if we want to go forward. We should not go back 20 years in our development. We should think about the future. We should think about what is going on in the world and then go in that aspect. Mr. Chairman, since you don't want me to waste more time, I think I will stop here. Thank you for listening.